Hey guys, how's it going? It's Denise with the Education. So I was just having coffee with this student of mine who just told me that she wants to take on French this summer. So she has a few months off and she really wants to, learn French. She has an internship there. And so she asked me, Denise, how do I do this? How do I learn French in 3 months? And as my teacher brain goes, well, this is something that probably someone else can benefit from. So I decided to come back home and quickly just make this video for you. So how do you learn a language in 3 months? So the first thing that I want to tell you is, what I asked her is, well, it depends on your starting point and your goal. So I kind of mentioned this in my other video, how to learn a language. But basically, it really, first of all, there's no set amount of months that, you can learn a language in 3 months, in a year, in 24 hours. Yes, I've seen that too, crazy. But let's say if you are like her, let's say that you're not exactly starting from zero because you've probably been living in the country, or it's not completely new to you, but you've never opened a textbook and you don't know anything about the grammar. Maybe you just start to understand a little when people talk, but you can reply, you have that speaking block. If this is your situation, I would suggest you keep watching and I can give you, the best advice for you. So basically, how do you do this? So once we've established basically that you starting basically from zero, you understand maybe a little bit, but you're starting basically from zero. And your goal is, of course, not to be fluent and native speaker, but to really engage in the conversation. Probably you're moving abroad, or like she's doing, she will be working there. So even though she'll be speaking English, but still like the environment, speaking with colleagues, simple interaction. Okay, if this is your goal, I would suggest you go about it this way. So first of all, get a textbook that is not just grammar. Please, I love grammar, I love it, but it's not just that. So you have to think about learning a language as a body. You can't have legs without arms and all of that. So you have to focus basically on the 4 skills. So listening, reading, speaking, and writing. And what I find is that the best actually textbooks for this are the ones for the certifications. So for example, for English it would be an IELTS, or like B2 certification book, or for French it will be DELF, for Spanish it would be DELE. So for Chinese it would be HSK. So because those are the textbooks that really prepare you on all the 4 skills, because the language certification is on these 4 skills. And this is one part. So basically there you really build the foundations. But the problem with those textbooks is never enough, because yes, you have speaking exercises. Yes, you have listening exercises, but it's never really enough. And as I always preach, and as I always say, and as you will see in my new guide that it's coming very, very soon on how to speak any language, the thing is, you have to speak a language, right? So you can't completely skip the grammar, the reading, the writing, because what are you going to say? You can't just make up words. But you can't also just do the exercises, because this is basically how you learned it in school or university. And if you're watching this video, that's probably the problem that you have is, yes, I've done all the work, why can't I speak it? So it's a combination of the two. On one side, the textbook. So again, I suggest certification materials. And on the other, well, I do have this guide coming soon, but basically do the fun part. How can you make the speaking part, which is essential, it's the most difficult part, it's where you process everything that you've learned and you put it into words and you get engaged in conversation. How do you do this? There's, again, a number of ways that you can do this. In my guide, you will see it. But basically what you can do is, this would be my plan. 3 months, right? So you can think about it this way. You study, you carve out an hour of your time every single day where you work on the textbook. So you really lay the foundations, you do the exercises, then you do the other part, so which would be the part in my guide, but basically is like the speaking part, the listening part, the part that it's more fun and engaging, and not just for fun, but that you actually need to process everything that you've learned on the textbook to be able to put it into words. So what do? So you choose a topic that you like, something that you like, you Google it, you watch a YouTube video on it, and then you try to understand. So for example, let's say that you're passionate like she is about horses and horse riding. So you search a YouTube video on how to take care of a horse. You watch it in the language with subtitles at first, okay? Then you pause it or you finish watching it, and then you try to comment it, to summarize it, just to have something to say about it, okay? And this way, what you've learned, let's say in the hour of textbook, right? You try to put it into words. Of course, the vocabulary is not going to be the same, because if you're at the very beginning, probably you're learning about family members and it has nothing to do with horses. So again, you can vary. Let's say that you're learning family, then maybe you can, try after you're done with the hour of textbook exercises, you can talk about your family. But what I'm trying to say is, it's not just relying on the textbook. When you're done with that hour textbook, I want you to practice at least 30 minutes of pure speaking and listening, okay? Or again, obviously, if you're focusing on writing, write about it. If you're focusing on reading comprehension, just do that. But the first part is the foundation, that is evergreen. That is for everyone, the 4 skills. The second part, get very specific on what you need. What you need is speaking, you have to speak. You can't just stop there. So you do this every single day. So, Monday to Friday, I leave you Saturday and Sundays off. Monday to Friday for an hour of textbook, 30 minutes of other practice. And you repeat this, for 12 weeks. Of course, if you're working, if you're studying, if you don't have like an hour and a half a day, and maybe you just have time on weekends, I would suggest that you basically take a look at the book, how many pages, are there to study, do a little bit of planning. So you start on day 1 and you see how many pages can you do in an hour of time, and then you divide it. So let's say that you can do 10 pages in an hour and you only study on weekends. It's just a math calculation. How many pages can you do on the weekend, so that in 3 months you can get to finish in the book, okay? So this is it. Always, always, always also remember, like I say in the guide, to be surrounded, if you can, by people who know what you're going through, also for support, but also like language learners like you, so you don't feel alone, you feel motivated and engaged. And always, always remember your why. So you're not gonna have the strength and motivation every single day, but if you focus on the why in those moments, like, yes, I want to be able to talk to my colleagues in French. Yes, I want to be able to, join the local basketball team when I move abroad and talk to my, teammates. Just like, remember that the brain really goes where the emotion is, put it simply. So if you really can focus on your goal, that will give you the motivation to keep going, even when you're not really liking at all what you're doing, right? Because the exercises can be boring, which is also why, like my style of teaching is a little bit different. But I do agree that you cannot just do one without the other. There has to be the grammar foundation, the reading foundation, the listening, speaking, and writing foundation. But then you also have to do the specific, the target part. So for speaking, that would be just speak. For writing, that would be just write. Okay? And so on. So I hope you found this video useful. As usual, if you have any questions, leave them down below. And, I'm always here to create content that helps you be fully independent in your language learning. See you in the next one. Bye.